Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Live Ones. I am Big Matt, your capper extraordinaire. The big story today, baseball's postseason continues to take shape. The Phillies clinched a playoff berth, notably had champagne and a whole celebration ready to go in the clubhouse, but the team actually decided to not do anything with it. Just left it all where it was because they said that after the game, getting to the playoffs is the standard now. That's what we expect to happen. And you shouldn't throw a party when you just meet expectations, which was a really nice way of looking at it in this day and age. Where things stand right now in the National League, the Phillies can clinch the East with one more win over the Mets, either tonight or tomorrow. The Brewers have already clinched the Central. The Dodgers are still really trying to fight off the Padres, who have come alive here down the stretch. Their magic number is 5. That could go right down to the last series with the Padres playing the White Sox this weekend. In the AL, the Yankees are also trying to fight off the Orioles. Their magic number is also 5. The Guardians benefited huge from a Royals loss last night. Their magic number is down to 1. And the Astros have a comfortable 5-game lead over the Mariners, but because one of their last 2 series is against each other next week, both teams still effectively control their destiny. The Tigers and the Braves can also sneak into the wild card of the Mets and the Twins. Crap out here at the end. Of note is that no one is really running away with anything. We have a rock-solid crop of 14 good teams here in contention for 12 playoff spots, and the seeding arrangements are likely to come right down to the final series everybody plays, maybe even down to the last day. I am so excited for this postseason. It should be a great one. We have a super Saturday of sports with conference play beginning in college football. We've got important baseball games. We've got UFC Contender Series. Let's get to it. At noon, we have West Virginia taking on Kansas. The Mountaineers are coming off a heartbreaker of a backyard brawl that could have gone either way to drop them to 1-2 to open the season. But I really don't think it should be looked at as a case of failing to meet expectations because they opened up against Penn State in a game no one expected them to win, beat the pants off an FCS team as expected, then lost a coin flip game to one of their arch rivals who, by all accounts, look a whole lot better than expected early on. Now, you want to talk teams that failed to meet expectations, that's Kansas in spades. There's no shame in a Big 12 team losing to a Big 10 team. The Big 10 just plays better football, but UNLV, that's a game they should have won. Matthew Sluka just made them look silly, running for 124 yards and a touchdown against Kansas, had a passing touchdown as well. The Rebels had almost 200 yards total on the ground. Now Kansas has to contend with an even better dual-threat quarterback in Garrett Green. The fifth-year senior is averaging 243 total yards per game and has 6 total touchdowns against 2 picks. West Virginia also has a great duo of running backs in C.J. Donaldson Jr. and Jaheim White. You just really never know who's going to get the ball for the Mountaineers. You just know you're going to have trouble stopping them. On Kansas' side, Jalen Daniels just looks absolutely lost out there against defenses that are not world beaters. 3 touchdowns and 6 interceptions in 3 games. 2 of them came last week against the Rebels. This guy is just not it. Excuse me. The Jayhawks don't have the offense clicking right now. Nothing's going right for them at quarterback. West Virginia's got tons of problems on defense, but its offense is nice and reliable, puts up a ton of yards and points, and if they get going, I don't think Kansas is going to be able to keep up. You're getting a nice price on the Mountaineers on the money line today at minus 120. I say go ahead and grab that. I'm not taking the spread because I just don't trust either defense to cover this big a number, but the money line is very attractive. To the 3:30 games, and let me tell you something. I saw something I don't think I could ever remember seeing in college football last week in the Tennessee-Kent State game. That was a bona fide mercy rule being applied because the Volunteers ran up 65 points on the Golden Flashes in the first half. They had almost 300 yards of offense in the first quarter. Come the second half, the referees actually offered Kent State what's called a running clock to end the misery. That's just when the clock just keeps on going and going, even if you go out of bounds. But even if you get incomplete passes, the Golden Flashes might just be the single worst program in FCS football right now. That's a tough statement to make. There are a lot of terribly run programs. There are programs like Charlotte that I won't even try to rebuild in college football 25. There's just so much working against them. But Kent State has won 1 football game in the last 22 months, and it was to Central Connecticut State of the FCS, not exactly the cream of the crop. James Franklin is a coach, maybe the prototypical coach when it comes to running up the score on weak opponents. This is a program that hasn't made a college football playoff since the 4-team system was instituted, but would have made every single one had the 12-team system been in place since the beginning. This man loves his style points. He's absolutely ruthless. He kills weaker opponents. Plus, last week's game against Bowling Green was way too close. They were actually losing that game for most of it, so Franklin will have been chewing his guys out about that all through the bye week. They're going to crush Kent State. It's going to be another humiliation. The total is 55.5 points. Penn State gets that by themselves. Give me the over 55.5. Speaking of Penn State, I want to look at the team that gave them that scare in Bowling Green. They're coming off a bye and have Texas A&M this week in a classic sandwich spot between two of their conference opponents after they beat Florida and are going to Dallas next week to play Arkansas. I have never liked the way Texas A&M was run under Jimbo Fisher. I thought they were the perennial underachievers who never got up for the big spots or made the most of the prolific recruiting they were able to score. And Mike Elko, former head coach of Duke, doesn't look like he's changed the culture too much in his first year so far. A&M just looks sad against Notre Dame, who we now know is nowhere near as good as advertised. And they looked frankly pedestrian against a terrible Florida team last week, maybe the worst Florida team we've seen in decades. They especially look bad on defense. You don't give up 250 yards passing to Graham frickin' Mertz if you're a solid defense. And their offense isn't much better. Connor Wegman is still out with an injury. Marcel Reed looks like a deer in the headlights out there. A&M is 85th in the nation in finishing drive stats. That's points per trip inside your opponent's 20. Bowling Green is 15th. And Bowling Green got a lot of its points off of what's supposed to be one of the toughest defenses in the country in Penn State. Simply put, 22.5 is way too big a number in this matchup today, so give me Bowling Green as the road dog plus 22.5. East Carolina and Liberty, man, Liberty's defense is bad. Really, really bad. I mean, for a team that's pretty well regarded as far as Sunbelt teams go, played as weak a schedule as they have to open the year, watching these guys on defense is just like a constant one right after the other. They gave up 310 yards of offense and 24 points to Campbell, who's a bottom feeder FCS team. They gave up 275 yards and 24 points to New Mexico State, who no one has pegged to win more than 3 or 4 games this year total, even though they have one of the absolute easiest schedules in the country. They gave up 10 points to a terrible UTEP team, one of the absolute worst in the FBS, but that doesn't tell the whole story because UTEP lit them up for 335 yards of offense and only didn't have a lot more points because they had 3 turnovers. There's just no one the Flames are capable of stopping. So what should East Carolina be able to do to them today? I would think a lot, considering they're averaging 432 yards a game on offense and 6 yards every time they snap the ball. Jake Garcia can move the ball. He can generate points. His problem his whole career is just that he throws a whole lot of picks, makes a lot of bad decisions with the ball. And I don't think Liberty's got a secondary that can take advantage of that. East Carolina's a team I would classify as, an average FBS offense. Liberty's just given up way too much to a bunch of teams that weren't nearly as good as them. I like East Carolina's team total over 23.5. I think that's way too low considering Liberty's performance so far. Over to baseball, and there are a couple of games I like today among teams that are just absolutely given up. 2 of them are the Rays and the Blue Jays. Both of these teams have just been absolute under machines lately. The Rays ranked dead last in the MLB in runs scored over the last 7 days, averaging 2.1 runs a game over their last 6. Tampa Bay has scored 3 runs or fewer in 3 straight games, 6 of its last 7 outings. Meanwhile, the Blue Jays have scored just 4 runs in their last 3 games while being shut out twice. Toronto has scored 4 runs or fewer in 5 out of its last 7 outings, cashed the under in 4 out of the last 5. It's Yariel Rodriguez against Taj Bradley on the mound today, but honestly, it doesn't matter. These teams just don't care anymore. Give me the under 7.5 runs. Twins and the Red Sox. What in the world has happened to the Twins? On August 17th, they were 23 games above 500, looked like they were going to pose a serious challenge to the Guardians in the Central. Since then, they've gone 10-20 and are in danger of losing the last wild card spot to the Tigers of all teams. Fortunately, they've had one saving grace in this stretch, and he happens to be starting on the mound today. Pablo Lopez has been dominant down the stretch with a 1.30 ERA in his last 5 starts. He's also gone consistently deep into games. 7 innings has been pretty much a lock for him. The Red Sox just have nothing left. This team wasn't built to compete for an entire season, particularly with how riddled with injuries their starting pitching and bullpen has been all year. Their offense has gone absolutely ice cold the last 2 weeks, averaging a mere 2.6 runs a game their last 8. They're falling out of wild card contention. They're probably going to finish below 500. Just a really disappointing year all around for them. The Twins need this win. They need to stay in that last wild card spot. I think they pull out the dupe today. Give me the Twins on the money line. And last but not least, UFC. We have week 6 of the Contender Series, and we have the best fight of the card between 2 really solid welterweights. Benjamin Bennett, who's got a professional record of 6-1, suffered his only defeat against current UFC fighter Trey Waters. Before going pro, he had a really impressive 18-4 amateur record, winning a bunch of one-night 4-man tournaments, facing a bunch of future UFC talents. His fight camp and the roster of people that he came up with in the amateurs just screams UFC ready. In his latest outing at LFA 186, he showcased his well-rounded skill set. He earned a unanimous decision. with a nice blend of striking and grappling. He can do both really, really well. He'll need that adaptability against the undefeated 6-0 striker, Hart, who has secured all of his wins by knockout. He's got a solid 12-fight amateur background as well. He employs effective striking techniques, particularly from the tie clinch, makes it really challenging for opponents to engage him up close. But despite his finishing prowess, his knockouts have often come from combinations rather than singular power shots, which may afford Bennett some opportunities to just, like take a shot here and there to close distance and take the fight to the ground. Hart's grappling is really untested. He's a real striking machine. So given Bennett's experience and his robust fight camp, and he's the more complete fighter, I think he's got a better chance of success in this matchup. Even though Hart might have a better ceiling in the long run, I think Bennett right now has to be considered the favorite. So give me Benjamin Bennett to win this fight outright. That's my 7th final play for today. Everyone bet safe, stay safe. Follow us on X at Live One Sports. Check us out on Roku and Fire TV at the Live Ones. Have yourselves a great Super Saturday of sports, and I will see you next time.